Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Alex Aquarius channel and the Stories and Prayer Show. What we do is we have topics. We start with a prayer and we end with a prayer every show. And today we're going to talk about telepathy. Telepathy is something that you do when you think of somebody. If you think of them, you can actually bring them into your thoughts. Think of that person, send a message. That person can receive that message, and that person can respond to your message. So what we're going to do is we're going to try that on a game, what I call Guess the Color. All right? Let's see. Think of a color. Red, yellow, or blue. All right. Think of a color, red, yellow, and blue. Then type ready. And I will guess your color. It's that simple, folks. It's just set up. I just came on today to play this game. And we're going to see if it works. Think of a color. Red, yellow, or blue. Type ready, and I will guess your color. Let's see how many people can send a message to me of the color that they're thinking of. And we're going to keep it to red, yellow, and blue so we don't have weird colors like chartreuse pink and emerald green or something like that. It's just red, yellow, or blue. I have an example. Like here's a lens solution bottle that I have, and the cap is blue. So if I look at this blue and I focus on it, and then I just think of the color blue and everything about the color blue, and then I send that telepathically. You know, if all you have to do is get in tune with somebody, it's like dialing a radio station. I've been telepathic. I've sent messages to my girlfriend one time. She came over and she said, "Were you meditating and calling my name?" And I said, "Yeah, I was about 2 hours ago." She said, "I heard it. I was at a traffic light and I just heard you calling my name." I said, "Wow, that's cool. It worked." Yeah. So let's try it now. If you're in here, if you're a participant, think of a color. What have you got to lose? We'll just see if you have one, and we'll go with it. Let me look at, meanwhile, some videos that I found. Look at this. Has anyone ever seen, I love to talk about UFOs. Has anyone ever seen a video or in real life a saucer with green lights? Watch this one.
While walking through town, a man noticed something unusual above the streets and decided to film it. A round object with green lights glowing underneath floated slowly across the sky, moving so effortlessly it seemed to glide. Viewers online quickly pointed out that it didn't resemble any plane or drone they knew. Its silent, smooth motion created a strange mix of calm and mystery, leaving everyone watching the footage intrigued by what it could really be. Enormous silent craft. An enormous craft was seen hovering silently against the open sky, its shape unlike anything known to us. The surface appeared detailed and complex.
I found this video. It's called "No One Believed Until They Filmed It." UFO footage in Ohio shocked the whole world. But this one has 50 million videos, 1.99 million subscribers. It's called 50M Videos. I'm going to subscribe. Hit all for ringing the bell. Because I like anything that has to do with UFOs, aliens. We'd like to look at that and talk about it. So if you have a color yet, in the chat, say hello and pick a color and think of it. And if you have one, say ready in the chat. and I will immediately stop whatever I'm talking about, and we will go to you, and we will pick that color out of your mind. Because do you know when you're telepathic, all you're doing is when you think of a person like me, you don't even have to know me really. You only what impression you get of me right now. Let me put the camera on me. So, whatever impression you get of me right now. Here's a guy sitting in a gold shirt with some print of leaves with things behind him. Looks like a red hoodie. It's a red hoodie that I wear. A grabber. I have a grabber behind me. I'm in my studio room. I could put a background behind me. Sometimes I put like this one. I'll put myself in the ISS. How do you like that? Sometimes I like to do that. Or I can put other things behind me. Like, how about this one? The hands. This is what your hands do. According to spiritualists and people who do hypnotic regression, people who study the chakras, can't really show the whole thing, but like your finger, look at that. This would be your left hand over here. This would be your left hand because of the way it's printed, I guess, unless you're looking at it top view. Does it say right hand or left hand? Because one index finger says confidence, the other one says authority. Let me drop it down. Where does it say? Top view or bottom view? Foundational knowledge, focus. You know, that's weird on this drawing. They didn't say if you're looking at the right hand. Let's say that this is the right hand. So this is the right hand here. But look at the index finger is authority. Middle finger is focus. Then you have creativity. And then you have, what's that word? Oh, power. The power's in the pinky. Look at that. The purple part of the pinky is power. So I could put that as my backdrop. I could put this toroid. This is an energy toroid. This is what the energy field around our bodies looks like. If you could just see when you feel somebody's aura. Picture the human body in that, just going down through the center of this thing. Standing up through this. That's the aura that's all around you. Your body makes that energy field. And that's the energy field that has a frequency, and you are a transmitter. So if you can transmit, I think I'm going to use this as my backdrop since we're doing telepathy. If you can tune into me just by looking at me, I go by Alex Aquarius. It's pseudoscientific, not sure what you're trying to prove. No, I'm not proving anything. It's fun. I'm just doing this for fun. I thought of this like a game, and I was going to try to do it just for fun to see if I can do it. And if I'm not even saying I do it, but we do it. Because if I can guess what you're thinking of as a color, then that means you're able to send it. I'm just trying to prove that, really not trying to prove it, but see if Captain Obvious, that's a nice handle. Instead of obvious. What are you into? What are you into? Researching, debunking? Do you have a channel? What do you mean it's nonsensical? Think of a color. Just give it a try. Why not? Just throw it out there. Empirical evidence that this phenomenon is legitimate. Empirical, I have my own experiences. The reason why I want to try it is because I've had experiences where my mother, we were in the kitchen one day, and there was a counter in the kitchen facing this way and another counter with the stove facing the other way. And I was at the sink making Kool-Aid or something. And my mother said, "Hey, where's Guy at?" This person that lived down the street. And I said, "Oh, he's with his dad and he's at some camp in Arkansas. He won't be home for another month, but he'll be back." And she turned around and she looked at me and she said, Why did you say that? And I said, didn't you ask me about Guy? And she said, no. She said, but that's what I was thinking about. So I've had personal experience. Another time I was meditating and I tried to message my girlfriend and it worked. And I even forgot about it and she brought it up. It was in the morning one day and she was out shopping. And she comes home about 2 hours later and she goes, hey, were you meditating and calling out my name? And I thought back and I go, oh, yeah, I was. Did you hear that? She goes, yes. She said, I just came out of the mall and I was at a traffic light and I just hear your voice and I hear you calling my name. So I have personal evidence. I don't know if that's empirical, but this is why I like to do it because I have some type of ability to do it. I've had other experiences too that are telepathic. And if you would like to try it, think of a color, red, yellow, or blue. Have you, I know there, if you look it up in Wikipedia, what I looked up the other night, it was talking about people in the 1890s that were supposed to be telepaths and went on stage and would put on shows that they could read people's minds. And then they went after the show and people debunked them. And sure, ready. Okay, Captain Obvious, thank you. So you've got a color. Let me think. Let me think. Captain Obvious is thinking of a color. Red, yellow, or blue. And that color is it red? I got a slight impression of red. I need practice. Let me look again. Captain Obvious. Captain Obvious. And first I saw green. I'm not sure if you picked green, but when I first closed my eyes and I read your name, I was picking green, but then I thought we're restricting this to red, yellow, or blue. You were thinking of blue. Okay. Let me send you a color, okay? I'm going to think of a color and then see if you can of red, yellow, or blue. And then you tell me if I can send it to you. Okay, I'm looking at it also. I have an object here in my hand that I'm looking at. It's on here. Are you picking up anything? Maroon red, is that what you got? I was thinking of blue, the cap on this thing. I think the answer is always blue. I don't know if it's working. Can I try again with you? Let me think of a color. Let's say you want to add more colors, or should we keep it just to red, yellow, or blue? Let's keep it to red, yellow, or blue. But let me try you again. If you can think of another color, please. You were thinking of maroon red. I like that color. I think of that color. That was my school colors. I've had a lot of things that were maroon red. My comforter is maroon red. That's part of my life is maroon red. So you might have picked up on that from me. That's odd. you were thinking of blue, and then for me, you got maroon red. Isn't that awesome? I've had for a lot of my life, I had this big maroon king size comforter. It was maroon red, and those were colors in my wedding when I was married a long time ago. Um, that that's a big significant color for me. But can you think of another color, please? Let me try to pick up on another one. And Captain Obvious. What is in your picture? I see a red banner. With they're so small you can't ever really see. Where is it? I wish they had an enlarger that says, picture avatar. But if you click on it, it just says channel activity, go to channel. I could go to your channel, pin a message, report, remove, put user in timeout, hide user on this channel, or add as a moderator. Captain Obvious. Captain Obvious. So if you have another color, let me think right now and see. Captain Obvious. Live right now. Thinking of a color, right? I'm going to picture this person holding up a card, and he turns it around. It's yellow. The first one came up. Sometimes you try to picture like just an individual, I just pictured right now, I'm standing in front of a bar and there's a person that just took a card and went like that, and it was yellow. You're a professional musician. Oh, cool. I've played a lot. You want to see mine? I will show you. Look at, I have a Telecaster. I have you were thinking of yellow. Wow, it worked that time. You know what I did? I tried a trick that I just thought, I'm going to imagine a person standing in a bar, has a deck of cards and picks it up. And as soon as it turned, it just flashed yellow. But there was only 3 colors. We might do it again. Here, let me show you. I want to turn the background off. Okay, look at this guitar. What instrument do you play? This is my Telecaster. You see that? It's got the regular headstock, but I have an interesting combination here. If you look at it, this is the American Pro Player Plus. It's made in China, but man, does it play. It's got the Strat bridge. Hello. Hi, Watson. Hello. Welcome to the chat. This is my Telecaster. I was just showing Captain Obvious. He's a professional musician. I don't know what instrument he plays yet, but this is a strange Telecaster. I found this in a pawn shop, and I looked up and I thought, what kind of Telecaster is that? But it's called the American Pro Player Plus. It's made in China. And it's interesting because it has a Stratocaster bridge, a humbucker pickup at the bridge, and the middle pickup is a Strat pickup. And then the front pickup, the silver one here, that's the lipstick pickup. So you play piano, so you play the whole thing. You play the whole damn studio. The didgeridoo, is that you think of with Australia? The djembe, the dimbrick, and the harmonica. I can play a little bit of piano. I play guitar. I can play bass. I play drums a little bit. I had a drum kit for about a decade and a half with my kids, and played it all the time. Never could get violin or viola. But this guitar I found in a pawn shop and bought it for $300, and it's so amazing. I've played guitar most of my life, and I've had just about every kind of guitar. I had Ibanez. I was into Ibanez all the time, and Speed and Joe Satriani, and then I got a Les Paul. And I've played in bands. I go to blues jam all the time. But this one has 7 different positions, see, because it has a humbucker splitter switch and then a 5-way switch. And this switch wore out when I bought it, but I bought from Fender the American-made 5-way switch from the Stratocaster, and I put it in there myself and soldered it in. But this guitar is a do-everything workhorse for every gig because you can play all kinds of stuff. I narrowed down my guitars to 2. Just so I can have workhorses. I'm not into expensive guitars, but I have a Yamaha APX 500. Now they're the APX 600 if you've seen those. You have several Ibanez that have a nice hollow body, an EX series, an EMG 81. I don't know what that is. An Ibanez AEG and a 1998 Korean Yamaha with the Floyd Rose bridge. Oh wow! I had the RG 560 Ibanez, the one just below the gem in the late 80s, early 90s. Oh, let's see. Wodenson, I like to talk about UFOs, aliens, paranormal, death experiences. Anytime, but I'm not really heavy into conspiracy. The Epstein files drive me nuts. I don't want to talk about that. But I like to talk about, if you want to ask me, I've had all the experiences. I've had, I'll tell you, I had an experience where I flew actually with gray aliens when I was 6. I didn't remember it until 2018. Started having flashbacks and went and asked my mother, and she goes, yeah, they were in the East Yard. And she was there too. I've had out-of-body experiences where I went and flew through the planets and came back. I've had a demonic attack where I think I was cursed by this minister preacher of this cult because I was walking past the place where they met and he looked at me. A bunch of dead birds behind the house in the alley. And then that night, boom, I got attacked. I've had telepathic experience. I've had, you play the skin flute? Let's try. We're playing a game right now just to see if we can be telepathic. Wodenson, can you pick a color? And is it Wodenson? Is that your last name? Or Wodenson, is that your whole name? But if you pick a color, say ready, and then I will try to guess the color that you're thinking of. I just got yellow correct, but it's 1 out of 3. But if you would like to try again, we can do that. Or I can talk about a topic. We can look up some things. I have lots of experiences with, I had a death experience. I drowned. And I was underwater for almost 2 hours. I drowned in my shower. And I went through, did you ever see the movie Inception? Where it was like a dream within a dream within a dream. As soon as I died, I went to one place where I was with all the other people who just died. I got sent back. Then I rose up out of my body and I was in the shower, my eyes closed, and saw a bunch of things. And I wondered, what am I doing? I looked down and saw this person laying in the shower. I'm like, who's that? I looked at it. I picked turquoise. Let me think again, see if you pick it up. Okay, think of a color red, yellow, or blue. And I'm going to think, okay, Wodenson, you ready? Let's see. Wodenson. The color Wodenson. Standing at a bar, you're holding a deck of cards. You raise it up. Show me. Blue. That was my first impression. Or is that my purple dot? Wodenson. I'm actually seeing greenish or yellow. Pick turquoise. Wodenson. You know, I can't see your avatar that well because they're so small in the chat. It looks like a picture of you, but and I'm on my laptop too. I wish they were bigger. Nearly. Did I get close? I said yellow. At first I thought I saw blue for a flash, but then I got it's like yellow. Sapphire blue. Sapphire blue. What color is sapphire blue? Is that a bright blue? Let's try again. What about do you want to expand the colors then instead of just red, yellow, and blue? Think of let's say let's expand it. Do you know those chakra colors? Chakras, the 7 chakras of the body. It starts with red. Then what? Green, blue. Isn't there an orange? There's a purple. Isn't the throat chakra purple? And then there's the crown chakra's white. We can Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, the first color I saw was blue. I started to say yellow, but let's try that again. Let's see. Think of a color between let's change the colors up a little bit so we can wash my palette behind my eyelids. Let's say pick any color, but try to stay within basics of the spectrum. Can you do that? I've had a lot of telepathy. I've had my girlfriend come home and say, "Hey, were you calling my name?" I've had my mother and I used to play this mind game where it's called Mind Reader, and it was made by Milton Bradley, and the other person holds the card, and you're either looking at a number, a letter, or a color. And you can play just colors, just letters, just numbers, or all three, or the whole deck. And you just try to guess what the person's looking at. So, if you can, you ready to think of another color? Let's try it again. Or if not, I was looking at some topics. You want to see some UFOs I just looked at? Look at this video. There was a green saucer. And I've never seen, I have my own experience where I actually went aboard an alien spacecraft when I was almost 7 years old. And my mother was there. She went in the craft first and came back, and then I went up. But when she went up, I saw multicolors. Like yellow and blue and pink and green and red and green. It was all flashing, and then it just took off. It was right out of the front yard. But this one here, let me show you.
Too perfect to be man-made. People hovering online quickly pointed out that it didn't resemble any plane or drone they knew. Its silent, smooth motion created a strange mix of calm and mystery, leaving everyone watching the footage intrigued by what it could really be. Enormous silent craft.
What do you think of that? I like to talk about other things and keep the conversation going instead of just waiting to hear about colors. I think Captain Obvious tuned out. I hope other people show up. Let's see. Thank you for the saying I have a beautiful gift. I think I've been able to see, read. It doesn't happen all the time. I don't focus on it. But sometimes I see people's auras, I'll see a color around them, or I can tell their mood, or I'll directly know what they're thinking about. And I can't explain it. You don't want to just say out loud, "Hey, I think I can hear what you're thinking about." But it has directly happened to me that, my mother one time was cooking dinner, And she asked me, what happened to Guy? Where's he been? I haven't seen him in a while. And I said, oh, he's with his dad. He went to a camp place and they're out of state. They won't be back for a month. And then she said, but my mother and I also have the gray encounter experience in the front yard where everything was telepathic. Grays were speaking to us telepathically. To me, I went aboard. I got to sit in the chair at the center console, put my hands on this panel. And I remember the finger of the one on my left. He was pointing to this image of a spool. It was like that background in my picture. If you can see right here, if I put the background back, let me show you. There's this one. Do you see that? That's an energy torus. And imagine yourself standing inside of that. That energy comes out and goes all around your body all the time. So I don't believe, I know firsthand, it don't freak me out with in the slightest. It doesn't freak you out in the slightest. It was like meeting a family member from a distant part of the universe. Firsthand. What was that you're talking about? You don't believe, what you're telling me is you don't have to believe firsthand. Doesn't freak you out in the slightest. It was like meeting a family member from a distant part of the universe. You saw an alien? You met one? Is that what you're saying? That's amazing. I believe there are a lot of people here on Earth that have these experiences all the time. And they can't talk about them because they're embarrassed. Like right now, I'm on YouTube just talking about it, looking for people to talk and chat and bring it up. And I'll tell you what happened to me, no problem. I'm not embarrassed. I go by a handle, Alex Aquarius. It's not my real name. But still, I'm on YouTube talking about it. I'm live streaming. And we're talking about visiting with aliens. And but I found this video I was going to show you, the one with the green saucer. Have you ever seen a saucer that had green lights underneath it in real life or in video? Why would it just be solid green the whole time?
And a strange mix seemed to
one.
glide. Viewers online quickly pointed out that it didn't resemble any plane or drone they knew. Its silent, smooth motion, craft, and perfect to be man. Maybe we aren't as alone as we once believed, leaving everyone watching in pure disbelief. Flames trailed behind it, yet its shape didn't match any rocket or familiar aircraft. Despite the fiery glow, the object traveled with surprising steadiness and control, almost like it had a purpose. It shot across the sky before vanishing beyond the horizon, leaving a bright trail that felt completely unreal. People are still trying to make sense of what they witnessed that strange day.
Let's see, I'm going to skip ahead.
Sky, catching everyone's attention. The lights seemed to form the outline of something, though the full shape wasn't clear. People kept recording, unsure of what they were seeing. Some said it looked like a UFO. Others mentioned a satellite. Either way, it turned an ordinary evening into a sky mystery people are still talking about.
But they turn into
their smiles. In the background, a clear disc-shaped object glided silently past. Though the footage may be old, the details are striking. What started as a...
We can talk about that. I was in 1992. I just gotten a job, and I just moved to New Jersey. And I was at the church, and I used to be Mormon. I'm not anymore. But the bishop and I were sitting in the hallway, and we were waiting for the boys to quit playing basketball. And I was about 27, 26. He was older than me. He was in his 50s. And he was at Roswell, and he cleaned up the craft, and he cleaned it up. And he told me this in 1992. And I've got a video about it on my channel, but I'm just telling the same story. But he said, we were out there playing basketball at the church, wait until 9 o'clock, and then we drive all the boys home. And he's like, hey, you ever hear about that? He's a black man, big black man, taught karate, had a dojo. He goes, hey man, you ever hear about that alien flying saucer crash in New Mexico near Roswell? And I said, yes, I've heard about that. My mother has a book about it. My mother had Philip Corso's book, a paperback called The Day After Roswell. And, as kids do, you sit on the carpet in the living room, you may go through the bookshelf and pick off. We had an encyclopedia set, and I used to read the encyclopedias and browse through books sometimes when I was bored. And I remember my mom's little paperback about flying saucers and technology. It was Philip Corso's book about Roswell. So here's the bishop telling me he was there. And when I said yes, he goes, I was there. I said, really? What happened? Listen to this story. This is interesting. So what he said was it was a Sunday in July. And, you're not there. So we're back to talking about aliens. Let's see. Anyway, I'll go ahead and finish this for the people who are listening to the after stream. My bishop told me, he said he was in the Quonset hut at Roswell, and it was a Sunday, it was their day off, and it was a big, those big round metallic buildings where it fits hundreds of people with bunk beds in them, and the whole squadron was in there. They were the 509th Bomber Division. They would test bombs and stack dynamite and build things and blow them up. And it was near Roswell. It was in Roswell. But the ranch was about an hour and 45 minutes away to drive. I think it was 45 miles away. Took about over an hour and a half to get there by Army truck. He said they got on the truck. But first they were in their hut. They were some were writing letters, some were wrestling, some were gambling, some were writing letters, playing games. And their sergeant came in and said, hey guys, men, we have to suit up, put your fatigues on. We have to go out in the desert and clean up a plane crash. And this Hollywood movie production making a sci-fi movie has asked us to go clean up a plane crash because their prop craft that they built took off out of control and it crashed in our desert, and they want the Army to help them clean it up. So everybody suited up, and he said when the truck pulled up there on a ridge, it was a shallow ridge, and he said he could see a low impression in the ground where there was this like saucer craft. He said it wasn't perfectly round, it was oblong round, like almond shaped, but he said it was, you could see across the desert where it had skipped and then come to rest and hit this shallow cliff. And he said they got out, and since he was an MP, he was military police. Hey, are you checking out? All right, I'll see you later. Thanks for coming, Watson. Come back later. So my bishop, what he was telling me was that these people, they were in what was I saying? So he gets out. He's the MP. So they tell him to stay around the craft and guard it. Don't let anybody come near it. And so he's walking around. And there's 2 dead aliens on this blanket. But he doesn't know they're aliens. He thinks they're just little guys, little pilots that were flying this alien sci-fi craft. So he walks up to him. He's toe-to-toe with him. And he said he noticed that their faces were just all small and their eyes were big, but they were all swollen. And one of them had burnt its left cheek all the way to its chest. And he noticed that they had 4 fingers, really skinny, long arms and 4 fingers. And then he said his mind was having cognitive dissonance, and he thought if they're human, maybe the compression in the cockpit somehow deformed them somehow, because that was about the same time that compression in airplanes was invented to fly above 10,000 feet. So he didn't know about that. Maybe the compression of gas in a cockpit could shrink you. But his mind was trying to come up quickly with ideas of why he was looking at an alien that was dead. And the way he described it with the burnt cheek and going across his chest. Now, if you Google that image and you look at dead alien pics, you'll come up with that. It's not that hard. And I found it. He told me that in 92. And I found it like in 2002, about 10 years later, 12 years later. I was looking on Google and I found that one. You may have seen it. It shows a dead alien lying on a table and it's on his left side and the cheek of it's all burnt and the bubbles are going down to his chest. And I went, oh my God, he told me the truth. That was a confirmation for me that he absolutely told me the truth, because why else would he have said, one of them was all burnt in its cheek and all the way down to his chest and stuff. And there's a vivid picture of that right now on Google. Let me see if I can find it. Let's look at the picture. The one that he found was the image of, let's see. Let's go on DuckDuckGo. Images, dead, alien, burnt, cheek. Not those. Not those. Let's see, dead aliens, Shutterstock. Let me go to Google. Let's try Google. And then we'll see. Dead alien on table. Burnt cheek and chest. Who knows if they call that their chest? Oh, I don't want an AI overview. The story behind it. Let's see when forget it. Let's see images. Images. There's one laying on a table. There's another one laying on a table. What should I put in my viewer? You may have seen the picture. I don't know if you've already seen it. Let me know. But let me see. I had recurring dreams for years about a huge black pyramid craft. True. Well, you had a big black pyramid craft. Maybe you were aboard that craft, or you saw it. Maybe you saw it when you were younger and you've had blacked out memory of it. Because when I had my UFO saucer experience, I forgot about it. I believe because my mother forbade us two from talking about it since we were both out in the front yard. I remember after school, she picked me up the next day and I said, so who can we tell about our experience and about the beings that came and visited us? And she said, oh no, honey, we can't talk about that. And not ever, because no one's going to understand. They won't believe us and it's going to sound really funny. So let's never, ever talk about it. I was like, okay. So, and I forgot it. And that was when I was 7. Now I remember we moved when I was 9, and I'm remembering going to the neighborhood north of Houston and Cypress and the neighborhood I was in and meeting all my friends and going out and playing and riding my bikes in the woods and jumping ramps and then skateboards and all that. And never in my teenage years did I ever think back to that alien experience, right? I went on board the saucer and I sat in the chair in the middle and with my hands on the panel, and it was flown telepathically. But we went over the ocean. We went, I think, to South America, to the Amazon jungle. And I knew where the Gulf was because we lived in Houston and my family had boats and we would go out in Galveston and since I was an infant. So I knew where the Gulf was. And I remember we went up immediately and flew south across the Gulf. And we were high. Now that I've flown a lot in business, 33 years, and I think we were flying at about 80,000 feet, but we must have been going 2,000 miles an hour, and we just flew across the Gulf and we hit land. And then I remember looking at trees and going down, and then I saw buildings that were shiny with kind of rounded tops. They didn't look like the Houston line that I was used to as a kid. And I remember thinking, that's not Houston. You know, you could have been in a huge black pyramid craft. Do you know they say that not the pyramid ones, but the new ones that are triangular? That's definitely human technology. Did you know that? There's a man named Stan Deyo, Deyo. He worked under Teller, the guy that's been involved with the military and all the UFOs and Project Blue Book and all that. He worked under General Teller, and they were developing the triangular spacecraft with reverse engineering out of some of the crashed vehicles. And that was in the 70s and 80s he was doing that. And now, do you remember there was a triangular craft that got stuck in southern Illinois next to St. Louis? And it was hanging in the air and it was flying really slow and it was being chased by police cars from all different jurisdictions. And they even crossed the border. These police cars from southern little towns in Illinois were crossing over into Missouri and they had 100 cop cars chasing it. And it was kind of hanging crooked in the sky. It was a black triangle. And it was hanging and hanging. And eventually it straightened up right and it just flew off. And I think what that was, my guess, is it was a human vehicle. There were humans in it. And they had mechanical problems. And they were like, crap, it won't go. What do we do? The balancing generator is off, sir. The gyros have quit. They've malfunctioned. Fix it. Scotty, quick, fix it. They didn't have a Scotty, I guess, or they did. Maybe he fixed it. And eventually they got it. Maybe it was sputtering and they got it to work and they flew off. But it may have come from, say, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, or maybe it came from who knows where. But a lot of people saw that. But ever since Stan Deyo said in a talk that most of the round ones, you can believe they're alien. But he said, if you see a triangular craft, those are human. He said, because I helped design them. And he talks about, he holds up magnets and he nails in these washers and rings and magnets into boards. And he shows you how, if you create a circle of magnets, you have to leave one space open. There has to be an escape where the energy goes out. There's like an exhaust of magnetic energy. And you have to leave an exhaust port for the field to equilibrate with the environment or another field. Are you aware of over unity generators? Do you know what over unity is? Like in engineering, if you have a black box theory, you put in 1 unit of energy, you get 1 unit output. 1 unit of input equals 1 unit of output. That's unity, 1-to-1. But let's say like in a car engines are supposed to be efficient, like only 87% efficient, 86% efficient. And you use a lot of efficiency because of noise, friction, just parts rubbing on each other, unbalance, vibration. But if you can put in 1 unit of energy and get 1,000 things out, 1,000 units of energy, that's over unity. And that's what the Earth is, I believe, is an over unity generator. I think the Earth gets its power from, say, Polaris, the pole star, Sirius, and it goes right through the North Pole, and then it shoots out across the Earth, and it creates gravity. I don't believe in the molten core creating gravity because iron loses its magnetism. Any metal loses magnetism over like 600 degrees Fahrenheit or Celsius. But can you imagine in intense liquid molten states saying that magnetism comes from the center of the Earth when the Gaussian theory says that magnetism disappears? There's no Gauss to measure. Isn't that funny? So the whole molten core theory unapproves of itself by just looking at magnetic theory. It's not even theory. The facts about magnetism is if you heat them up and melt them, they don't work anymore. If they're liquid, you don't have any liquid magnets. Can't have a liquid iron core or something that's pulling on something else. And let me stop that. Just had an alarm. Here's my background music. So, what would you like to talk about, Woodinson? Woodinson? Is that how you say your last name? Hello, welcome to Stories and Prayer with Alex Aquarius. Had a prayer coming in. We'll have a prayer when I finish up. And why do I not? I found it. So, I had some participants in the crowd, but now I don't. Just doing my live thing. That was cool. I got someone to come on and I actually guessed his color. It's a game we play. If you come on in here, this is like I'm at a carny at a carnival. Come on in, guess a color. I'll tell you what color you're thinking about. It's just a way to break the ice. And I get them right a lot of times. I do get them right. So, let's look at this. We've got these little... Turn that up. That's where it breaks off in volume. Right there. Okay. Now, we were looking for pictures of the dead Roswell aliens. Let's see. Dead alien. Oh, that one looks real. Some of these pictures are redacted, so I can't see them. Some of these pictures are redacted where I cannot see them. Let's see. There's Mac Brazel. No, that's not Mac. This picture here is real. That is a real alien. I can just tell by the head shape of the cheek and bone structure here. There's one that has one of them laying on a table where its cheeks, this one. That one right there. This is what my bishop told me in 1992, and he goes, "Hey, you ever hear about that Roswell crash?" "Yeah, I was there." And this one had burnt cheeks. His cheek was burnt, and it went all the way down to his chest, and they were wearing little suits on. And look at this. I found this on Google like 10, 12 years after he told me that in 1992. And I found this dead alien with burnt cheeks going down to his chest. And I was like, holy moly. He told me about this picture, this alien in this picture, 10 or 12 years ago. And he was telling me the truth, because I know that's a personal story. You can't prove what I'm saying. But for me, I was like, oh my gosh. I'm actually looking at what he was talking about. I'm looking at what he looked at right when it crashed. Well, let's say within, 24 hours, 48 hours of when it crashed. Where's that one? Is this? No, let's see. Picture of the Roswell alien that was dead on the table. But I'm going to tell you that picture on the top here, this one, that one, that's real. That is what they look like. What you're looking at here, that is not a mock-up. That's not a puppet. That's not claymation. That is a real dead Roswell alien. So I don't remember their heads so big like that. See how their back of their head looks like a muffin top? Kind of like a, you know what I mean? It's got like a loaf of bread back of their head. But I wonder if it's swollen from the crash or if they all had that. Let's look and see some more pictures. Remember they tried to go here and tell people that they got some pieces of a balloon and some aluminum foil and some sticks, and they said, oh yeah, this is what they found, and they brought in fake stuff. And they tried to convince people that they made a mistake. They didn't really, this guy, and he had a letter. But the funny thing is, he has a letter in his hand, and people have magnified the letter in his hand. And he's holding, can you see it here? I think there's another picture. He was holding a piece of paper in his hand, and it was an actual memo from somebody else telling him what to, there it is, this one. That picture. People have magnified that and read it. And it actually is telling him how to fake it. What they're doing right now in this picture is faking it. They just pulled out some material and tore it up and threw it on the floor and said, this is what we found. And it was all BS. And this is the real picture. That's the alien. That's the exact same dead gray alien that my bishop described to me in 1992. When he was at the Roswell crash, when he was standing right toe to toe with that thing, looking right at it. And he said its eyes were swollen and it had a burnt left cheek. And he said it was all bubbled up. See these bubbles? And he said he didn't know if it maybe looked like that when it was alive. Maybe like reptiles have bubbles and bumps. That's part of their morphology, that, you know, that's just what they look like. So he didn't know if he was looking at something that had those bumps normally or maybe not. Then you have, like, what's this one? That one does not look. People think this photo found in an attic shows an alien body recovered. It doesn't even have the same chest shape, leg shape, arm shape, head shape. It's almost a human-looking face. I don't believe that one whatsoever. I've got a really good idea what they look like. Here's the guy that my bishop saw. Again, the official U.S. Air Force reports on the UFO crash in New Mexico by Richard Weaver and James Andrew. That's the one. Wouldn't it be fascinating if I could call up Tim? His name was Timothy Canty, C-A-N-T-Y. And say, hey, Tim, I found this picture. Can you tell me, is this the one you stood in front of and looked at? And he'd be like, oh my God, that's it. That's the one I was looking at. Holy crap. He's had to have passed because I was in my late 20s and he was already 50, early 50s. So hail to you, Tim. I found it on the internet. This in 92, it was before. That's a real picture. If that's not a real alien, it's a exact replica made of the real thing. Because that's exactly what they, you know, they have that ridge on their bone. See how their nose goes to the forehead? Let me make sure you can see this one on the capture. Yeah. Do you see how they have a ridge on this bone? I see if I can get another expansion of that picture. Now it's taking me to some ABC thing. No. If you'll notice, there's a bow shape from the nose to another protrusion right here in the forehead. And it's a curve like a bow. And I always look for that, because if you look from the side, you'll see that bow shape. And you'll know that's a real alien picture if you see the bow shape, because there's another one on this alien here. Okay. If I click on that. Where does it go? Oh, that's a book. It goes to Amazon. Let's see that. But if you look from the nose, go up like this and see there's a protrusion right there. So it looks very strange to me, the back of the head, how bulbous it is. That's very, very big. But of course, it just crashed. It could be swelling. But who knows? Do aliens swell when they bang their heads really hard in a catastrophic traumatic accident? What's this one? That looks pretty close. See, it's got the protrusion thing going on up here. The head's kind of the right shape. It does have that muffin top look. See, now when you see an alien like this, it doesn't have the muffin top head hanging down in the back. This one, looks kind of real. We're trying to decide which ones look real and which ones don't look real. Do you think this one with the hat that looks like Queen Elizabeth? Looks like a hat that Queen Elizabeth would have worn. That is not the head of an alien. That's not real. See that picture right there? That looks like a teenager with makeup and prosthetics on. That doesn't look like an alien at all. I don't believe that one whatsoever. Let's see. Who else? Who else? We've got Stanton Friedman. He has died. So this, have you ever seen Skinny Bob? Have you ever watched the video of Skinny Bob? He looks awfully real. He does have that bow in the nose ridge that goes up to a point here. His head has that muffin top part in the back, but he's different. Up here, this part's different. But if you've seen the video, the movements in the eyebrow and the eyelids is very real looking with muscles. It could just be a different species. These look real. This one, you remember the alien interview? Have any of you seen that one? Where the alien looks like it's coughing and it's sick and there's people in a dark room that are taking care of it. One thing I want to know is, how come whenever they're interviewing an alien, the room is dark and they have the lights off? Just because look how dark it is in there. But to me, that does not look real. They say it was sick and they show it coughing. From what I've heard, the aliens don't have an esophagus and a throat to swallow things. Their mouth is only like a pocket. That looks real. See how the chest is very humpy in the middle, but then the waist is like nothing? That's if you look at the dead one. That's how they see how like ours, like humans have the chest expanding. Those aren't real. And I don't know if that's a shadow or pubic hair. I hope aliens don't have pubic hair. That'd be funny if you had aliens with pubes. That sounds like a song. It's a title for a song. Aliens with pubes. I have to write that down. I always write things down when I think of something funny. Aliens with pubes. Because of that picture. Oh, that's funny. So let's get back. I just spilled some coffee on my keyboard. Let's go back to camera and screen. You are still live with us. Look at this. So the This picture here, that does not look real at all. That looks just like a human kid, shaved his head, dressed up. I don't think that one looks real. That one doesn't look real. No, that's Scott Cooper. Let's see, where's the dead one? You know, these crafts here, I have never seen one. I haven't seen anyone report on one. I don't know where they get the idea that some of the UFOs look this way. Turn that music off. Do we have how many views? 4 views. 1 like. Okay, we're having a little better success today than I've had during the night. But let's see. When did we start? What time did we start? I don't know. But Stories in Prayer, Telepathy Game. We tried it. It worked. I got one right. I would like to do it again. We're still looking at pictures of the dead aliens. I was telling you, this craft that looks kind of like a boomerang with the center point. I've never seen one. I've never seen people talk about them. I don't know where that came from, if it's old. Did a UFO really crash at Roswell? It certainly did. You know, I can tell you as a personal experiencer of someone who was there, who told me the full story of what happened that day. From the time the sergeant came in and said, "Men, suit up. We've got to head out into the desert nearby here on a farm, and we have to clean up a crash of a sci-fi vehicle that flew out of control and crashed in the desert near us. And the movie production, the producers have asked us to go there and help them clean it up." And everybody's like, wonder what? Wow. Putting on uniforms, tying their boots, got in the truck. They drove up. He said when they drove up to the ridge, he looked out and he could see this. He said it was like a shallow indention in the terrain, and there was a vehicle. He said like a craft in there, but he said it was silver, and it wasn't perfectly round. It was like oval shaped. But he said you could look across the desert and you could see where it had skipped. He said you could see where the thing had skipped across the ground. Like when you looked out, it went. So it took a few bumps across the desert, and so they could see the trail from where it came from. And everybody was told to split up and go back and pick up all the pieces of debris. So they completely scoured that place and picked up all of the little aluminum foily pieces that you could crinkle, and they'd pop back without wrinkles. And then my bishop described those to me. He said there was looked like aluminum foil, but you could wrinkle it and it would pop back and it didn't hold the wrinkles. It's so weird to hear myself telling his story, what he told me, before I ever saw any of this on the internet or before Google even existed. And these people were talking about this stuff. So it's interesting. Let's go back. What other things? No. What about this one? That one looks real. Oh, that's somebody in a museum. That's one that crashed at the museum. But that's a replica of what it really, really, really looked like. Where is that place? New York Daily News. What date is this from? From February 14th, 2026, Saturday. A famed Roswell UFO crash involved 2 alien spacecraft. Not one is long believed retired Air Force officers. I've heard that there were 2 crashes, not one. Have you heard that? Let me read this. Let's read this article. Almost exactly 65 years after the Air Force shot down conspiracy theories that an alien aircraft had crashed in Roswell, New Mexico, a retired lieutenant colonel says not only was the UFO real, but it wasn't the only one. There were actually 2 crashes at Roswell, which most people don't know, Richard French told the Huffington Post. French, who was undergoing a test for the Air Force in nearby Alamogordo, New Mexico in the summer of 47, detailed what happened when a UFO supposedly flew over Roswell. That fabled incident, was that the one that was like blowing smoke and had some problems? The fabled incident, which has launched decades of speculation over the existence of aliens among us, occurred in July of 47 when the Air Force issued a press release describing the crash and the discovery of a flying disc. Well, it wasn't the Air Force, but it was the Roswell Army Air Force. Although they later retracted that statement, clarified the object was a weather balloon. And that's when this guy held up balloon material and said, yeah, it was a balloon. We were mistaken. So they shot down the first report. They shot it down. It was effectively an electronic pulse-type weapon that disabled and took away all the controls of the UFO, and that's why it crashed, he said. So the first one was shot down by an experimental U.S. airplane that was flying out of White Sands, and it shot what was effectively an electronic pulse-type weapon. I heard the reason why they crashed was because of radar. I had heard that when the military started using radar, that's when the UFOs started crashing, because for some reason when they get it near a radar field, it disrupted their frequencies and their energy fields. But now they're saying that it was an experimental pulse weapon. Maybe it's like the one that knocked down the building in Oklahoma City. And they said it was a bombing, but it was actually pulse weaponed. Because it was the columns in that building were pulverized into powder, and somebody was doing a report on that and said that it had to be a repeater pulse weapon, what they call, like it goes boom, boom. Within milliseconds, it has double booms so that the first one goes boom and the next one goes bang, bang, or something like that. It helps to pulverize whatever it hits. Okay, back to this one. He said his source, who remains nameless, told him what had happened and said another alien craft crashed close by just a few days later. So a few days later, French suspects the alien beings who piloted the second UFO crashed while trying to recover the ship. They were trying to recover the first one. We think that the reason they were in there at the time was try to recover parts and any survivors of the first crash. And I'm referring to the people from outer space, those who the UFOs it was, whose UFO it was. French also added fuel to the conspiracy theory fire by claiming he'd seen proof of the alien aircraft. I had seen photographs of parts of the UFO that had inscriptions on it. It looked like it was in Arabic language. That's what my bishop said. He said it looked like funny writing on there, like Egyptian or some hieroglyphics. And like each one had a part number on each one of them, and they were photographs in a folder that I just thumbed through. While believers in alien life will surely embrace French's story, it didn't fly with at least one fellow former military officer. Though Army Colonel John Alexander doesn't doubt the premise that these craft exist, he has lobbied senior government officials like Defense Secretary Leon Panetta to encourage members of the military to talk about it. He says the military couldn't have brought down a flying saucer because the technology wasn't there. We couldn't have done it then, Alexander, now retired, says no chance, zero chance. That's what I believe. I thought it was radar because radar existed. And I think when we first started turning on the radar, I read that more than a decade ago. It was radar that brought them down. What is this picture here? If you're in the chat, say ready, and we'll guess a color and see if we have telepathy. And with each other. I can't say I because I've had recurring dreams for years about a huge black pyramid craft. True. Got to go for now, but I'm sure I will see your stream again. I had a guy in here, Captain Obvious. Thank you for coming. He had to go now, but he said he would come back. And Woodinson. Sometimes I go live stream at night after midnight if you're ever up If you like to night owl, I night owl. I just tried this during the day today to see if people would watch me during the day, if more would come. And so far, I've got a few more people. Not a whole lot of people in chat, but look at this. So yeah, my bishop described like this. He did that hand angle like that, and he showed me this one. You see that? And the way he had his hand angled, the saucer was at a shallow angle. It looks like a 25-degree angle from the horizon down. And it was sitting just like that in a shallow, see this, the terrain had this little indentation, this low, what do you call that? A low point. And the spaceship, it bounced across the desert. And then when it hit this low spot, it just went boink against like a shallow rise. It wasn't really a cliff or a wall. It was just a shallow rise in the terrain. And it just stuck in there. And bam. You know, the aliens probably survived the skips and the hops on the sand, but hitting that little wall, wham. However they go, you know, the speeds that they're flying at when they hit something. Could you imagine if you were the alien being and you're used to flying these saucers, and you know that when you bring up the generation bobbin and it starts spinning and the walls disappear around the craft, you know you're in the field. You don't feel any inertia. When I was in it, I thought the door was open and it was sitting in the yard the whole time. Turns out we were actually in the Amazon jungle, and came back and flew over the Gulf of Mexico. And zip, zip, and right back. And when I walked back over to the door, my mother took my hand, and the last flashback of memory I have is me walking toward the front door, and I'm holding her hand. And I wish I would have turned around and looked back, but I don't remember that in my flashback. But you don't feel any inertia. Like when a ship takes off, if you're in a craft, and let's say it starts going that way, you don't go, and then if it hits the brakes, you don't go, and have to brace yourself. Because that's inertia. There's no inertia. When you're in the craft, you don't feel anything. It's just like sitting in your chair right now watching me talk on YouTube. And if I told you we just went to the Amazon jungle and back and you didn't feel it, you would say, what? No way. And I'd be like, yeah, you didn't feel it at all, did you? I'd be like, what are you doing? That's magic. So that's how it works. But let's see, a little technical difficulty here. Is there anyone else in here participating? If you come in, guess a color. Let's see. Type Ray. Of course, we're looking. Yes, I already got my. I have my song obvious. What's my favorite kind of in? Or the some of your love? Oh, I was looking like we left. Favorite? I don't know. Favorite? The most common are the ones that I was watching. Occasionally hear about the tall, beautiful blonde ones don't speak. They're able for everything, but they don't seem to be